Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Bob Pompeani here. We have a lot to get into tonight. We're going to talk about the push-tush, believe it or not. We're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about some things relevant to the Pirates and Pitt basketball. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the plight of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Where they are, will they make the playoffs? And here to discuss is your panel tonight. We have Jeff Hatthhorn, Sports Director at 93.7 The Fan. Far left in the middle, it's Will Graves from the Associated Press, and Colin Dunlap, host of the Fan Morning Show, to the right. So, Jeff, I'm going to start with you on this one. Penguins back-to-back losses. The urgency wasn't there, especially after having a big lead on Long Island and then losing that game. Where are they right now? How much has your level of concern been ramped up over the last couple of weeks?
What's crazy is they're still in the playoffs. I mean, so
barely.
Right, but they still are. And they have games in hand, so I guess that's the positive news. I loved what I saw in that Islanders game until the last couple of minutes, really. I loved the way they played, and then yesterday was bad. I mean, they're inconsistent. It's the same. They're getting the same questions because we're seeing the same results.
I mean, yesterday was like a schedule loss, right? I mean, they had to play 2 games in less than 24 hours while traveling with the Devils off. I mean, that happens.
Good on
that happens sometimes.
Anyway.
I mean, the scarier part is they've lost, 8 straight against Metropolitan Division opponents.
Yes.
Those are the guys you got to play in the playoffs, unless, of course, you finish 8th and then you get mauled by the Bruins in the first round, right? They're in a tight spot. Jeff says they have games in hand. I look at that as a negative because they're an older team, which means they have to play more games in a condensed amount of time. And I think that's just, as we saw last night, on those second nights of back-to-backs or the third and 4, it's going to catch up to them.
Bob, they're like right where I think a lot of people thought they would be, to be quite frank with you. And that is, if you went and re-signed the big 3, which they did, right? Then you were going to not be able to pay below them. You were going to be very top-heavy. And the big 3 haven't been their problem, I don't think. If you look at Malkin, Letang, and you look at Gino, or at Sid, they haven't been the problem. The problem is not being able to backfill and not being able to do things below them. But whenever you hamstring yourself to a top-heavy, kind of salaried sort of structure like that, that's what's going to happen. And there's nothing to do but see this all the way through. There's nothing to do but see this through.
Who decided to bring back
Jeff Carter,
right. Kasperi Kapanen.
Oh, I understand
Made
that.
a trade for Jeff Petrie and his $6 million. So, Jeff, back to you on this one. Jeff Carter. It looks like a mistake. They have to deal with that not only this year but next. What should they do with him? Is it time to give him a sit and say, you're a healthy scratch?
I do think that. And it's tough because Carter's been a really good player in this league. He's played hard. He's played the right way. He's impacted a lot of teams. So I don't want to sit here and clown him because the guy's had a hell of a career. But they have to do something to shake it up. And if you look at the weak link, I think Jeff Carter's a weak link on this team right now.
I mean, how great does the HBK line look in the rear view 5-6 years later when you look at the mess that they have out there in the third line now? I mean, yes, Carter's been good. He also had as many penalties last night, too, as he has goals since December 30th. You need a little more production there. And to Colin's point, if you're going to pay your best guys, then you can't miss with the other guys. And the really alarming part is, there are no Jake Gensels coming up. There are no Brian Rust coming up to save the day. That's the scariest part for the Penguins.
The Carter situation, although positionally much different, is pretty reminiscent of the Jack Johnson situation when it got bad. Like, what do? You keep marching him back out there? Do you try to see it through? There's not time to see it through, although I do think that the ceiling is finite either way. Whether you make a move or you don't make a move, this is a team that's going to most likely be eliminated at best with a first-round win, more than likely with a first-round loss. So why do a bunch of crazy things if the end game's probably finite?
Because you want to win and at least have a chance in the playoffs. That's why they brought those guys back. And I think everyone knew at some point this was going to go south just because it has to. But at the same time, they didn't expect it to be now. So, Will, let me ask you about this. Ron Hextall has some time to change things if he can. I don't know what he can. He's already gone on record to say, I'm not trading my #1 pick. How could he not trade his #1 pick if their end game is to try to be competitive and get into the playoffs and make a run?
I think I said this on here a couple of weeks ago. His job should not be to worry about what the Penguins look like in 2028. Right. That should not be his priority. And now the problem is, they have needs, but they don't have any tradable assets because the guys that other teams would want, they need to keep, right? You need Marcus Pettersson. And obviously, you need the big 3. I mean, is anybody going to take Brian Rust for 6 years with a no-trade clause? And now you might need a goalie. You probably need a goalie. So, It's a tight spot. I think he's doing this he has to think about his job too, right? I mean, I think he's in a tight spot. If they flame out, if they don't make the playoffs, he's definitely out of a job. If it's a first round one and done, I believe so, yes.
Anybody agree with that or disagree
Absolutely.
with that?
If they don't make the playoffs, how can you justify keeping Ron Hextall?
What about Mike Sullivan?
You know what? I think that the statute of limitations on him winning Stanley Cup is about done too. That it was probably time last year. But more to the point, Hextall. This is Hextall's creation right now to a large degree. Even if they lose in the first round, I don't think or win a first round playoff series and then lose. I don't think it's out of the question he should be terminated, even if with that.
So, I don't know if Hextall could win, given what they were asking him to do, to keep them good and get younger at the same time. Well, then management wanted to keep the big three together. And then when you get the big three together, you sit around in a room and you think, okay, if we surround them with a Petrie, if Carter stays, we got a chance to make a run. That's what's flawed about this. They're trying to get good for the future, sustain being good, and win now, and that is really hard to do as Hextall, as it's showing.
1 minute left. The likelihood of them missing the playoffs. Because if I look at it, you say games in hand, I do think they matter, and I agree with your point, Will. But, Colin,
60-40.
you have Buffalo and you have
60-40,
Detroit,
they make the playoffs.
both with games in hand on the Penguins. They're younger, they're faster, and they're within 3 points. Those two teams can end up as your two wildcard teams.
I just answered you, Bob. 60-40, they make the playoffs. They'll make it. 60% in, 40% out.
What teams make it if they don't?
Oh, did you say Buffalo?
I said Buffalo and Detroit.
What about the Islanders?
I don't think so. Bo Horvath hasn't done much for them, and they have not played very well. They got
they had the same
yesterday
thing,
again.
but it's the same thing that happened to the Penguins yesterday.
Right.
They had to play less than 24 hours later.
The Penguins will get in, so your point is moot.
Okay.
60.
60. That's not exactly 100%, but Jeff, what do you say?
I say 85% they're in. I think the big three make plays. When Jari gets back in there, I think they're a better team. So I think they'll win enough games to get in.
And if they don't, which teams get in?
Well, they deserve the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I want to be very clear about this. Their resume, they deserve the benefit of the no other team in North American sports has made it 16 years in a row.
Right.
That being said, when you zoom out to Colin's point, the idea that this group coming back was going to be a Stanley Cup contender, when you see them against the Avs, when you see them against the Devils when the Devils are flying, when you see them against the Kings, and again, that was a back-to-back night, I get it. They are not among the league's elite. They're not. And so then what's the point here? I mean, and I think I said this in 2016. We're talking about the Pirates when they were spinning their wheels. Either get bad and then get better. The problem is that they're stuck in the middle.
We got to go
and
to a
fix
break.
the traffic out there. The construction of the arena is ridiculous.
Walk. This is what you should do from here. It's an easy walk. Park here and walk. Seriously,
Do you walk, Pomp? There's no chance.
I walk a lot.
You can take the T for free.
You can take the T for free. I'd rather walk. It's a good, joyful way of enjoying the outdoors. We're going to take a break here. When I come back, we're going to talk about football news, including Eric Bieniemy and the push-tush next.